Well, my dad was a West Point grad, class of 1970. He was a Vietnam vet. He served 37 years before he retired. So I grew up in the Army. Literally, I didn't spend a day outside the Army until I was 30 years old. I was born into it. We moved 7 or 8 times as a child. Had a father that was a combat vet, infantry officer in Vietnam. Um, so that's just what I knew. So about 10 years old, I was like, this is what I want to do. All my friends, we lived on post. All my friends' dads were Vietnam vets. I remember one guy across the street, he had scars. He would run without a shirt. He was another major, scars all over his back from getting mortared and stuff like that. That's just the environment I grew up in. So in the mid 80s, we were literally, Charlie Mike was our favorite book, which was about Vietnam, the Rangers in Vietnam. We would literally dress up in fatigues and go play in the woods at Fort Hood or wherever we were, reenacting Charlie Mike, with all the gear and everything. So we just steal our dad's gear when they take it home. So that's what I grew up in. So I knew from a very young age that's what I wanted to do. So graduated high school and went straight to West Point. The ability to surrender and admit your weaknesses. And surrender is not a word we like. We can't stand it. But it's the ability to say, whatever I'm doing isn't enough, and I need to find something else that works. Just the no quit, just the desire to keep driving on. Same way we were in the military, in a firefighter, whatever. But you have to do the same thing with your health now, your mental health, your brain, physiological and psychological. You got to throw everything at it, go all in. Otherwise, you're just going to be miserable. And this is just again how veteran stories impacted as company commander, third ACR, and got hit by an IED, slumped over his driver, and his last words were, keep moving forward. And he died on his mom's birthday. And his parents ended up writing a book, and they were missionaries. They found out actually at the airport coming back. And they ended up writing a book about his story, and the title is Keep Moving Forward. Right? So even his last breath, his last words, that's what he got out, keep moving forward. So that's what we have to do. As a company commander, I had a soldier who got really seriously wounded, lost his leg at the hip to an RPG. Sitting in the seat that I should have been in, by the way. But I didn't go out on that patrol that day because my first sergeant came to me and said, I haven't been out in a couple of days. I want to go out. I said, okay, Roger, that's fine. I'll just go out on the next one. He always rode in the trail Humvee. I always rode in the lead. So the soldier that took the spot where I would have been sitting ended up losing his leg to an RPG. And the doc said he's not going to survive because people don't survive that wound. And we got him medevaced out, got him headed towards Germany, and I had to call his fiance because she was in the military and it's stationed in DC. And I said, you need to get to Germany as quick as possible. And just having to make that call and then hang up, lock it back up again, and go right back out. I will deal with that later. It's done. He lived, amazingly, by the way. I call flipping the switch. It's very easy to do. There's literally an internal switch that you can just flip, and it just shuts everything down. And it happens when you're fighting with your wife. It happens when you have emotions you don't want to look at or deal with, or people you don't want to deal with. And then you can flip it back on to the war mode emotionally, and it's like you might as well be setting off emotional IEDs in the people around you. Find someone you serve with who you can trust and tell them what's going on. Just tell them. Tell somebody. But it's easier for us to tell the people that we were there with, and their automatic response is usually 90% of the time, dude, I'm dealing with the same thing. And then take the next step of finding ways to get help. But here's the thing, at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're drunk, you don't want to do that. When you're replaying the stuff in your head, and the only way to get it out of your head is to drink yourself to oblivion, that's the hard ones. How do we get them before that happens? How do we find them? It brings the resentment of, why am I still dealing with this? Why did this happen to me sometimes? the anger at God, the anger at the people you love because you're hurting them, and all those emotions mixed together when you're drunk. And the only solution you see is the worst one. So how do we stop them before that? And the only way is having someone that's checking up on you, just like we did in the military, a battle buddy, constantly, that knows you, but also knows that it could be 2 o'clock in the morning. They're there to make the call. But there is a better life, and it's just helping people to helping our warriors and soldiers and their families to understand that it doesn't have to be this way, right? You can live free again, and you can enjoy life again. And I'm a testament to that. I did everything wrong in my transition. I came home from Iraq. I got a high-powered business banking job. So 3 weeks later, after being wounded, divorced, I went from that environment 3 months later, and I was working at an investment bank wearing suit and ties in Nashville, sitting behind a computer 12 hours a day. So I went from being the company commander, running a whole city in Iraq, fighting, to doing that. Perfect example. In my job interview, one of the vice presidents said, "So what's the biggest challenge you've ever faced?" And I said, "Do we want to talk mortar ping pong? Or do we want to talk RBGs?" And his eyes just kind of went like this, right? Because he had just no concept of it. And he was like, well, mine was baseball. you know? So it's literally, the way I describe it is, the biggest challenge was recognizing that the color of my sky was now purple, whereas everybody else's is blue. So you're walking around with an entirely different reality that nobody else can see. And it's having to operate with that. It doesn't have to hurt anymore. It doesn't. And we have ways to help. And it doesn't have to grip you for your whole life. We'll fucking fight the demons with you. And we can run them out. And once they're gone, they're gone. They won't come back. And then you can live again. Like it was before, honestly. Because that's how I am. I know what it was like the day that this all changed up here. And I'm back to most, not all, most of that. Yes, it took a while, but it's always been there. And my purpose that honestly God put me on this earth for now is to help heal others. It's that simple. That's why we've got this clinic set up. That's why we're going to put more in, because my heart hurts seeing the pain that's out there. So my purpose is to bring healing to other veterans, their families, active duty, anybody that served at any level, is to bring healing to them and to honestly go dig them out in some cases and find those 2 o'clock in the morning ones that we talked about. I'm not just going to be sitting in this office. We're going to go dig them out as much as we can and as much as possible. So that's my purpose, because it's the only way we're going to save each other's lives. That's it. Without sharing our stories, we're just going to pretend that it's okay. We're going to keep that switch flipped, but it's going to find its way out. Good side, but I wasn't, because I know the scar that exists over here. It's faded now, but I know it's there, right? Because that's why I have a beard, because I physically see it every day, right? And that's an actual physical scar. But the emotional scarring that occurs around these things, without working on that as well, it's not going to change, right? And so just telling these stories, like I said, just getting these stories out there helps you to realize that they don't have to be forever. They don't. And when you understand the forgiveness and just the relief that comes from not having to carry around the guilt or just the hurt anymore, that sometimes you don't even realize you have inside of you, and that's released, and you don't have to, it's just gone. Man, you can live in a way that God intended you to, honestly. And when you do that and express the light that you can then share with other people, they're attracted to that, especially the brothers and sisters that follow with us, because they want the same thing. But, for me as well, and people may or may not understand this, well, they'll understand it after watching this. It's just the color of my sky is purple, and it always will be. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it took me 18 years to figure that out. My name is Michael Jones, and this is my story.